Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. We're virtual only. We're based out of St. Paul, Minnesota. The phone number works if you'd like to contact us. We do the thought behind the thought, the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence, what's going on behind the verse, the deep thoughts behind the verse. We study Revelation and we try to solve Revelation. Today we're going to be solving Revelation 12. It sounds like Daniel 7 and Daniel 12. And so Revelation 12 has some new information that I've been able to glean from Josh Peck and from Ken Johnson, and it has to do with time, times, and half a time that is found in both Daniel and Revelation. So let's show you the screen for this and give you some of the thoughts behind the thoughts. The Hebrew words are going to be la moed, moedim, and vachetzi. And it's not time, times, and half a time, because moed and moedim has a huge meaning in terms of those are the designated festival times that God has appointed for us to keep. And whether you keep them or not, it's still designated and it's still God's word. And so you should be aware of it. Okay. I hope you'll keep those festivals. The first one happens to be Sabbath, so that's a great one to keep. So the main thing is when you see Daniel 7:25, you see the time, you see the Moed, La Moed, Moedim, and Vachetzi. And then Daniel 12 again. Very important verses, both 7 and chapter 7 and chapter 12. But then Revelation 12 has that same phraseology. Well, I'll show it to you in the Septuagint, and you'll see that it's exactly the same. And so that means that it is Moed, Moedim, and that half of that time frame. Then 42 months are listed a couple of times in Revelation 13 and Revelation 11, and then 1,260 days are listed in the 11 and 12. And so let's give you my opinion on them. I believe a Moed or a Moedim is for observant Jews, people that actually keep the festivals and they keep them properly. So they read the Torah and they keep the festivals, and that is their God's festivals. That's what it says in the Bible. The days, as an observant person myself, I would also keep the days counting up to the Sabbath. So today is the first day. I'm recording on Sunday. So that is how I think. That's how I count. That's how I reckon my life, based on every seventh day is the Sabbath. Okay. Then months. That would be for Gentiles based on, let's switch over to the other side here, the right-hand side, 42 months, Revelation 11:2, Gentiles, because it is the Gentiles that will trample the holy city for 42 months. And it seems to work out because Gentiles do reckon by the months. And then it lists off some of the other verses that apply. So Revelation 11:3, we'll show you these verses. Revelation 12 again, Revelation 12, and then Revelation 13. We won't do anything from 13, but there is the 42 months, and that's the beast. So once again, when I'm saying months, it seems to be Gentile based. And so it's nice that they cited these things for me and gave me slides. So what are we doing here? We're doing the philosophy of eschatology. We're trying to give you the Bible, give you the prophecy, drop some new information in, and see if this is news that matters to us. And then I'll be discussing a little bit about David towards the end here, so that'll be interesting. So what's a moed? What does it mean to me? The first moed, again, is the Sabbath. It's a noun. It's masculine. It's an appointed time, place, meeting, and it can be used many different ways. There's Ohel Moed, which would be the the tabernacle of meeting, okay? And it's found in Exodus there, Deuteronomy, very important times in the Bible. As I state in the middle of this here, Daniel 12, it's cited 6 times. And I'll show you those times. Zechariah 8, that's an important section too. That's eschatology there. So the Hebrew word moed is found throughout the Bible to designate God's appointments and his festivals. It could be translated as feast, but Yom Kippur is a fast, and that's one of the moed. So you don't eat that day. You afflict yourself. Sometimes it's about eating, but it's more of a designated time of meeting with God. Sabbath is the first, as I have mentioned, cited in Leviticus 23. If you can ascertain what Daniel and John are describing, the first moed of the moed cycle, 1 year later would end that time frame. And it's very interesting to consider that. So that's the Hebrew word. So let's find it in the Hebrew. Let's go to Daniel 12:7. And keep in mind, again, in the Hebrew, Daniel 7 and 12:7 are exactly the same phraseology for this. And so I'm stating that based on the new information from Ken Johnson and Josh Peck, that it would start on first fruits. That's would start this particular times and half a time. Okay, so and it was the waters above the river that he held up with his right hand and his left hand towards heaven, and that's the angel. And he swore by him who lives forever. So that is forever's ha'olam, ki la moed, moedim v'chetzi. Okay, and that is how it's phrased in the Hebrew. It's this is 12. This would be Hebrew. Yeah, it's not Aramaic. Daniel flips out to Aramaic in the midst of the Daniel's chapters, but by the end he's back to Hebrew. So, and then the interesting thing is that will be completely shattered the power. The hand of the people, the holy people, and it shall be finished all these things. So 12 is really important. It's kind of where we are right now. Okay, moving forward, I'm going to show you now the Septuagint on the left-hand side and the Greek from John, the Koine Greek, on the right-hand side. The Septuagint scholars were scholars. John was not a Greek scholar. I believe, based on my research into how John wrote, that he would have been thinking in Hebrew and had somebody translate it for him into the Greek. But you never know. He might have written it for himself. So the main thing is I want to show you something else that ties the two together, which is the waters of the rivers and then the water of the river that's spewed out in Revelation 12. So let's just look at it real quick. So once again, the linen clothes, as we talked about with the angel, upon the water of the river, and he raised high his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and he swore an oath to the one living unto the eon for a time. So it's Chiron and Kairos and Himisi, Cairo. Okay, so that's how it phrases in the Greek. And then let's just move it over to the right-hand side here, and you'll see who gave birth to the male and was given the woman 2 wings of an eagle, great eagle, megalon, yeah, megalo, that she should fly to the wilderness, to her place where she should be nourished. This is the second Exodus, I believe, for a Chiron, Kairos, Imisu, Cairo, and from the face of the serpent, and shot the serpent. And so you can see that water is a river out. So it not only ties the exact verbiage in the Septuagint together, but it ties together the waters and the river and things like that. So very interesting to see. Daniel 12 sound a lot like Revelation 12, and the second Exodus is what I'm going to be arguing on that. Okay, so once again, according to Josh Peck and Ken Johnson, it would start on first fruits. That would start that moed off, that time frame, that year time frame. Okay, let's move into Revelation 11, 1 through 5, and look at it. So once again, future Shavuot, can it fit into the text? Let's see if it does. I was given a measuring rod like a stick and told, get up and measure the naos. That is only the Holy of Holies. That's not the heron. In the Greek, the heron would be building or buildings of the temple area. In the Greek, the naos is only the Holy of Holies. So all he's measuring is the Holy of Holies, which is quite small, and no one can walk in there other than the high priest one time a year. Of God and the altar, and count how many people are worshiping there, but the court outside the naos, leave that out. Don't measure it, because it has been given to the goyim, and they will trample over it, the holy city, for 42 months. So once again, we talked about how it seems like then the 2 witnesses would be here for they would, if they're counting the days, that's how Jews count to the 7th day. But if it's 42 months, it's directly related to the goyim, because they reckon by months. Okay, and the 2 witnesses, and so the 42, or hope, I'm sorry, will trample over the holy city for 42 months. Also, I will give power to my 2 witnesses. I'm saying that based on Josh Peck's calendar, the Essene calendar, it's on Shavuot. I will give power to my 2 witnesses on Shavuot, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, dressed in sackcloth. So they're in mourning. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 menorahs standing before the Lord of the earth. If anyone tries to do harm to them, fire comes from their mouth. They're calling down fire just like Eliyahu, and it would consume their enemies. Yes, if anyone tries to harm them, that is how they must die. Revelation 11, 1 through 5. So the two witnesses, according to the Essene calendar, arrive on Shavuot of a future year. And there's Josh Peck's book on the left-hand side. I don't have anything from Ken on this, but basically they just came out recently and said this seems to be the final age of man. Interesting. So when they finish their witnessing, according to Josh again, Hanukkah on the Essene calendar, the beast coming up from the abyss will fight against them, overcome them, and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the main street of the great city, whose name, to reflect their spiritual condition, is Sodom and Egypt, and the city where the Lord was executed on a stake. Some from the nations, tribes, and languages and peoples see their bodies for 3.5 days and do not permit their corpses to be placed in the tomb. The people living in the land rejoice over them because it's Hanukkah time frame and celebrate and send each other gifts. Now, I talked to another scholar the other day about it, and he said that doesn't work out. And I said, but you're looking at the nations, tribes, and languages. People see their bodies. That's everyone in the world. This is only the people. This is the Ami of the land, the Eretz Israel. So this is just the people living in Israel. Rejoice over them, celebrate, and send each other gifts, Hanukkah gifts, based on the Essene calendar, because the two prophets tormented them so in Israel. I'm dropping that in, okay? But after 3.5 days, a breath of life from God entered them. They stood on their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them, meaning they're in Israel, in Jerusalem, watching this probably on the Temple Mount. That's Revelation 11, 7 through 11. And it seems to work, guys. It based on sending each other gifts. That's the time during Hanukkah when you get the gifts. And they would send them even more if they felt that they were tormented by the two prophets. It kind of works. It just does. So let's add a little bit of back information for the Essenes. Basically, they're saying we're in the 9th Jubilee cycle right now. The 10th would start October 1st of 2025. The year would be 5786, not the Essene year. I wish I had that right now. I'm sorry I don't. The two witnesses arrive on Shavuot of the future year and leave 1,260 days later on a Hanukkah. Hanukkah for 5789, if for some reason they show up during Shavuot of a future year, which is 2025, and they leave 1,260 days later, it would arrive on Tuesday, the 12th of December, 2028, and ends then on Wednesday, the 20th of December, 2028. Interesting. Okay, Apophis will then get very close to us within 20,000 miles on Friday, April 13th of 2029. Tom Horn is the one that's been pushing that. That information comes from space.com. I don't know if I agree with Tom Horn. I'm not sure that I agree with the Essene calendar. I'm saying this is very interesting, and it adds new information that we should digest and chew. Okay, so according to the Essenes again, Herod would be an evil king. Messiah arrives as per Daniel, as he prophesied. Messiah would raise the dead. That is not a belief that's found in the Old Testament, the Tanakh. Messiah would die in 32 Common Era. Messiah comes for Jews and Gentiles. The first coming of Messiah brings age of Chen. So what is that? That's grace. Okay, Chesed is loving covenants, kind of covenant kindness, things like that. Chen is very close to it, but it's more just basically grace. Okay, a Benjamite would share the gospel to the Gentiles. That's Paul. Okay, that's the Essene take so far of what I have for information. I like the fact that it fits in, and also they cite the 4 first fruits festivals. Okay, so the Essenes cite this and cite specifically things that are very intriguing. And so anyway, the main thing is we know that the first fruits of barley occur during the Aviv harvest, which is during Passover, and then wheat would come up during Shavuot. Then grapes would come up after that. And then the darkest month of the year is Cheshvan. That's usually October, November, where the olives are harvested. So to provide light, so to speak, from the olives, especially the first pressing, you would want to harvest them during the darkest time of the year. It's rather intriguing how it works. Okay, now once again, per the Essenes, they're the first fruits festivals, which are barley, which is Aviv, Passover, wheat, Shavuot, grapes are mid-August, and olives are Heshvan, as late as you can really get, into the next year technically. So keep in mind, Heshvan is October, November, very dark month, and that's when the olives pop up. So there are seven of the oh goodness, I'm blanking on what the seven are called. Uh, the seven, oh goodness, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it. But they are wheat, barley, figs, pomegranates, dates, and grapes. Olive oil is a culinary treasure. Yep, so that's from the olive industry. Okay, now let's move on to 12 and see if we can drop some additional information based on what we already know. Based on the Essene calendar, if they're right or wrong, the two witnesses show up during the first half. That means that the woman should be giving birth to this man child during the second half. Okay, that just seems to work in my calendar, and it works in the Essene calendar. So let's drop it in and see what it looks like. And a great sign was seen in heaven, a woman arrayed with the sun. And keep in mind, the Virgin reclines in the sky during Rosh Hashanah every single year. I've seen it for almost 20 years now. Every year. So in a future year of some year coming up, she'll have the moon under her feet. She'll have on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being with child, she doth cry out, travailing and pained to bring forth. And there was another sign in the heaven, and lo, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his 7 heads diadems, 7 diadems, and his tail drew a third of the stars. So that means that Satan is going to be cast out of heaven, and he's going to take a third of the angels with him, and he's going to have great rage. And he did cast them to earth, God will. And the dragon did stand before the woman who was about to bring forth, and when she may bring forth her child, he may devour, and she brought forth a male child. I'm saying he's like King David. I'm going to give you another video later on, hopefully next week, where I link this man child to King David. But I have to cite a lot of verses in Ezekiel to be able to show you that, and that's going to take some effort. Who's about to rule the nations with a rod of iron. Yes, it is Yeshua, but I will be able to cite to you, based on Ezekiel 40 through 48, that there is also going to be a King David ruling. So Yeshua is the ultimate ruler, but in many ways you'll have this King David, and he will have the seed. I'll show you the verses. Don't worry, it's coming in the slide just in a couple of seconds here. So the rod of iron, that's Psalm 2, and found very frequently. This child will be caught away, was her child unto God in his throne, and the woman did flee to the wilderness. That's the second Exodus, where she has a place made ready from God that they were may nourish her. And the days are 1,260. So that is that times, that's 1,260. So it works in terms of she would be Jewish, she would be counting the days to Sabbath, and so it works in my theory. Okay. Continue on to Revelation 12, 7 through 12. And there came a war in heaven. Michael and his messengers did war against the dragon, and the dragon did war, and his messengers, and they did not prevail, nor was their place found any more in the heaven. And the great dragon was cast forth, the old serpent, who is called the devil and the adversary, the Hasatan, who is leading astray the whole world. He was cast forth to the earth, and his messengers were cast forth with him. And I heard a great voice saying in the heaven, this seems to be after the midpoint, people, saying in heaven, now did come the salvation and the power and the reign of our God and the authority of his Christ, because cast down was the accuser of our brethren, who was accusing them before our God day and night, and did overcome him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony, and they did not love their life unto death. Because of this, be glad, ye heavens, and those in them who do tabernacle. Woe to those inhabiting the land and the sea, because the devil has gone down unto you, having great wrath, and having known that he hath little time. So he will be wrathful and angry, come down here with a third of the angels, and just be nasty to us. So, continuing on to finish it out. So I'm arguing this is occurring during the second half of the 7 years, as the woman is sent out to the wilderness and her child is caught up to the throne. So the dragon saw that he was cast forth to the earth. He pursued the woman who did bring forth the male child, the man child. I'm saying that's a King David type. And there was given to the woman 2 wings of a great eagle. That's the second Exodus, that she may fly to the wilderness, to her place, where she is nourished for a time, times and half a time. There it is. Okay, so that's a moed, la moed, Moedim, and Chotzi. Okay, so from the face of the serpent, and the serpent did cast forth after the woman out of his mouth water as a river. Remember how I showed you that? That's interesting how it matches with Daniel 12. That he may cause her to be carried away by the river, and the land did help the woman, and the land did open up its mouth and did swallow up the river that the dragon had cast forth out of its mouth, and the dragon was angry with the woman and went away to make war with the rest of her seed. Oh, that's horrible. That's us. Those keeping the commands of God and having the testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach. Wow. There you go. That ends up chapter 12. So what am I getting at? It goes through the time frames of the Moed to the Moed. So I'm saying Tishri to Tishri is a Moed. The Moedim would be Tishri, 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 Tishri. Okay, so it has to go through 2 years then, and then a half. So this chart isn't exact because it doesn't show all 3.5 years, but it does show the Moed to the Moed, and purple to purple to purple to purple, and then another half time frame after that. The two witnesses would leave before the midpoint. And let's see, is there, so yeah, before the Antichrist shows up, they'll leave. Okay, and the two witnesses would leave, and then also there are other things going on during that time frame too. So that's the first half of the week of years. Then the second half of the week of years, it would start out on Nisan. That's that midpoint, and that would be the first bowl during that time frame, and they would be announced, basically announced on the first day of the new moon, and then they would come and occur during the full moon of these time frames. And so you'd have a Moed and a Moedim and then Chotzi. Okay, Chetzi. So that seems to be what's occurring. Then, so you would get through, the seventh seal would occur before we go into the tribulation. The seventh trump would occur before the midpoint of the tribulation, and then go into the great tribulation, and then the ending would be very close to the seventh bowl. Gog War is after the seventh bowl, and Gog is defeated during Sukkot of a future year of some point in time. It's all linear. It's based on Moedim. There are these time frames leading up to the Tishri month, which has our ability to repent. It's Teshuvah. Shuv is to turn from your sins. Teshuvah is the process of turning from your sins. And so it's a very important Bible word, and that is that time leading up to the high holidays. You have 40 days during any year to repent, but it'll be even more important as we get into tribulation and great tribulation. So I'm tying it to David, to a Judean king. Yes, Yeshua is a Judean king, but I think there will be another one born. And that's what Revelation 12 is all about. Believe it or not, I've met two women that are misguided, but believers, very misguided, and they believe that they, this is years ago, 15, 20 years ago, that they were going to birth the man-child. So this is very interesting, and of all the people to believe this also, Mike Bickle and Paul Cain. Ugh, hate to cite them too. So anyway, this is from Genesis 49, 9 through 11. Yehuda is a lion's cub, my son. You stand over the prey. He crouches down and stretches like a lion, like a lioness. Who dares to provoke him? The scepter will not pass from Yehuda, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, until he comes to whom obedience belongs, and it is he whom the peoples will obey. Tying his donkey to the vine, his donkey's colt to the choice grapevine, he washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. You could argue that's Yeshua, but I'm arguing there's also going to be a man involved in this. It's going to be a man of the seed of Judah, and Yeshua will be the ultimate ruler, the Messiah, but there will also be a man involved, and I'll try to point that out to you when I dig through Ezekiel and find all the verses that apply. So also I wanted to show some Ezekiel just so you can have a hint of what's going on. This is Ezekiel 44, 1 through 3. It talks about the Messiah entering through the eastern gate, and it also talks about Torah. Those times, those times of the millennium are going to be Torah times. It's very specific in Ezekiel, and I'll show you more of these verses next week, or hopefully I can get it done by next week. It's a lot of work, people. Then he brought me back by the way of the outer gate of the sanctuary. The one facing east, the eastern gate, and it was shut. It was shut in, there's a plaque describing this in 1539-ish, and it was shut by Suleiman the Magnificent, his people. He never went there personally, but his people shut it. And he started in 1537 and he finished about 1543. And so he shut the gate and rebuilt it. So you can kind of see how he rebuilt over the old gate. And also, oh goodness, James Fleming, Dr. James Fleming saw this. He fell into one of the graves back in 1967 during a rainstorm, and he saw the old eastern gate down there. So he saw this thing. I love this picture. Okay, so this gate was shut by Suleiman the Magnificent, but Adonai said to me, this gate will remain shut. It will not be opened. No one will go through it because Adonai, the God of Israel, has gone through it. Therefore, it is to be kept shut. Only the prince, since he is a prince, is to sit there to eat his meal before Adonai. He is to enter through the vestibule of the gate and leave the same way. Yes, Yeshua, but I'm arguing based on the Ezekiel verses, there's going to be another person involved in it too. So this shows a little bit more of the eastern wall there. So basically a little bit more from Ezekiel 44, later verses. They're to teach my people the difference between the holy and the common. So the tahor and the tameh, and enable them to distinguish between the clean and unclean. That's the tahor and tameh. They are to be able to be judging in controversies. They're to render decisions in keeping with my rulings at all my designated festivals, Moedim. That's why I wanted to show this. They're to keep my laws and regulations. They are to keep my Sabbaths holy. That's the first one of the Moedim. They are not to come to any dead person because this would make them unclean. However, for father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister who has no husband, they make themselves unclean, to make themselves tameh. Okay, sounds like Torah, people. Sounds like we're in the birth pangs. We are definitely in the third horseman, but we are maybe in the fourth. I think so, but I'm not sure so. We are not in the tribulation. We are not in the great tribulation, but things will start to match up with the Moedim at some point in time. That's what I wanted to show you today. And it could be including, Shavuot then and Hanukkah. So you work on you and those that you love at some festival, Moed, in the future, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. What garments will you wear? You have to wear garments. They have to be clean. You have to have the blood of Yeshua on you. It's a wedding. You'll be cast out if you're naked or wearing dirty garments. So work on that. Be blessed. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll come back and add on to this. Thanks. Bye.